What's going, fellas?
All right, we are live on YouTube. Let me go ahead and put this into the chat here, just on YouTube, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube. All right. Got some more folks joining in. What's going on, Bob? Rhea, Ryan, great to have you guys. Got some more folks showing up here. Awesome. I'm going to keep my eye on this. If you guys are watching on YouTube, I'll try to address some of the stuff that you guys might be saying in the chat, but I'm going to just be focusing mainly on the folks that are here on the Zoom call. We have a live audience here, so I want to make sure we give attention to that. And we're going to go ahead and get this started here. We're going to be talking tonight about a topic that gets a lot of run. A lot of people talk about this topic ad nauseum, but I never hear a lot of topics or a lot of information on this topic that is really tactical information, stuff that I think you can really go away with and really implement and execute immediately, and just kind of changing the way you might be thinking about processes and tasks with your virtual assistant. So tonight, we're going to be talking about the three areas that your virtual assistant, if you have a virtual assistant, what I think from my own point of view, my own perspective, what I think that they should be focusing on, the things that they should be doing. And we're going to get into it. If you have questions, the whole value of doing this live, as opposed to some recording, is we want to bring you guys on air. We want to have a conversation. So I'm going to be talking, I'm going to be sharing my point of view, my perspective on virtual assistants, but I want you to have the opportunity to come on, to ask questions, and to have a discussion around certain things that maybe you're dealing with, or things you might be thinking about. There's no pitch here. I don't have VAs to sell you, so you don't have to worry about that, but we want to make sure that you guys walk away here with a lot of information, a lot of insight. So if you're on the Zoom, make sure that you are asking your questions down in the chat. If you're watching this on YouTube, even if it's on the replay, go ahead and ask questions in the comments, and we will make our best effort to answer those questions as soon as possible. I also want to promote Agency Success Live is a weekly show that we do every single Wednesday at this time. However, next week there won't be a show. This is episode 3. We won't be doing episode 4. Not next Wednesday, because we have our conference that's going to be taking place next week. And so we won't be doing a show, but we will be returning live in the flesh the week after. So if you guys are on Zoom, make sure, if you can, just because it looks good, I like to know who I'm talking to. If you have the capability, make sure you turn your camera on, and we can go from there. Even if it's on a cell phone, or if you're making top ramen in the kitchen, I don't really care. Just go and mute yourself. It's muted, and we'll get into it. So let's talk about virtual assistants. Virtual assistants, we are experiencing a gold rush of virtual assistants right now. It seems like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there were very few people. It was almost taboo to talk about virtual assistants or think about using virtual assistants. There was a lot of stigma about using virtual assistants, and it was this new thing. Now it seems like everybody wants to have a virtual assistant. They want to have 2 virtual assistants, and it seems like everybody and their mother wants to start a virtual assistant company. So we're in the gold rush of insurance agents using virtual assistants. Now, I started first using a virtual assistant back in 2016. And at that time, I was using a company called Marblebox, which still exists. And I implemented virtual assistants in my agency, mainly to help with some servicing, some kind of back office stuff, clerical information. And then about 2017, I went ahead and I switched, and I went to agency VA. And I was asking Wes this recently. I think he said I was like in their, he's not sure, but I was one of their top 10 as far as people who came on board, clients with agency VA. Now they're a large outfit. And so that's good to see. But I've been using virtual assistants. I was using virtual assistants for a number of years before it was cool. And that's not to say anything other than I learned a lot of lessons. made a lot of mistakes, did a lot of stupid stuff. I think in my time, just with agency VA, I think I had 6 different VAs, 4 of whom stayed with me for about 3 or 4 years, one of which went and left the company, went and did something else, and one that didn't work out. So I like to say I had a much higher success rate with virtual assistants than I did with actual employees. I've definitely let go of more employees than I've let go of virtual assistants. And so we learned a lot of lessons. There's a lot of things that you learn along the way that if I had known them then what I know now, things probably would have been even better. I definitely think that insurance agents, especially on the personal line side, you should be using virtual assistants for a lot of things, mainly because the commissions and the margins are so much smaller that to employ, and at the time I was in California, if I wanted to employ somebody in the Bay Area of California, I mean, the poverty line is $114,000 a year. So you have to find ways to get creative, and you have to find ways to make margins a little better. But I can also say without a shadow of a doubt that on the commercial side, there's a ton of upside, a ton of benefit to using virtual assistants, and we'll break down some of those. But we're going to talk about, and I'm going to go on for about 5 minutes here. I'm going to just outline what I think the 3 main pillars and the 3 main things of that a virtual assistant should be doing in your agency. And then I want to open up for questions. So if you're watching this, ask your questions down below. Let's bring you on for a conversation. Or if you want to just ask it anonymously, you can direct message me here on Zoom, and I'll answer, or I'll ask that question and I'll answer it with my own opinion going forward. But here are the 3 things that I think a virtual assistant should be doing in your agency. First, I think they should be taking care of all of your data hygiene. I've talked about this on week 1 of our show. Data in the insurance industry and in insurance agencies is a mess. It's a mess. It's horrible. And it's from a number of different reasons. And if you're not aware of those reasons, I'll just kind of break them down really quick. The data that you get from fat fingering in information into your AMS or CRM, and fat fingering, I mean, you just mess up. There's typos and there's things, and there's duplicates, and people they don't check before they enter in contact information. There's all that. You have that human error, that human mistake. But the information you get from Ivans a lot of times isn't very good. It's not good. And here's the third thing. This is something our team was talking about internally with AMS data. People will come to Better Agency for the AMS side of things. The data that they had 3 AMSs ago was bad. Then they moved that data over to another AMS, and that got even worse. And then they moved the data over to a 3rd AMS, and you see the cycle. By the time it gets to Better Agency, it's horrible. The data is unusable. It's like me trying to read Mandarin. It's not going to work. And so data is so bad. And if you aren't clear on the data, if you don't have proper data or clean data, you have no North Star. You have nowhere to go. You don't know right from left. You're shooting in the dark. And so what I think a data or a VA should do is they should be doing data cleanup. That's all they do. They should be living in your systems, in your AMS, in your CRM, wherever you hold your data. And they need to find what that North Star is. What is the single origin of truth? For us, it was the carrier. I couldn't rely on what the data said in my system. I couldn't rely on what the data said through downloads. I had to go straight to the carrier. And so what a VA should do is they should be going line by line, bullet point by bullet point, letter by letter, number by number, and they should be making sure all of your data is clean, clear, and accurate at all times. Now, when you first get this started, it's going to take a while, depending on how much your data is. We have found that on our side, the average agent that uses Better Agency has about 2,000, on average, 2,000 customers, accounts. And so if you factor in that it might take 10 to 12 minutes per customer to make sure that the data is clean with the carrier in your system, that the names are all correct, that everything is title cased, meaning it's not Nicholas Ayers with every letter lowercase or everything caps. Everything is uniform from a data set, from the premium to the commission to the effective dates, the renewal dates. Everything is clean, clear, and accurate. That's going to take some time, but they should be staying in the system, and they should be maintaining the data as it's in the system. If you don't have clean data, you're not going to be able to have good automation. Period. because it's not clean. It's not clear. If you don't have good data, your reporting is way off. The amount of times that I've heard agents say that they have a retention rate of 94%, or 97%, or 92%, only to find out that when they get clean data that it's like 78%. You'd be surprised at how often that happens, because it happens almost every single time. Customers that have policies that are active, but they shouldn't be active. Customers that have premiums that were the premiums 3 years ago and not this year's premium. All of that. They need to be sitting in there, and they just need to go, they need to look at the customer record in the system, and then they need to go to the carrier and they need to make sure that it's accurate. Data hygiene, data cleanup, premium commission reconciliation. They should be doing all of your data importing and formatting. So you got a CSV file from a carrier. They need to be going through there and doing their own search and destroy on multiple, on duplicate records, on bad information. We talked about this again in episode 1, if you recall. The amount of times that people put in the phone number agents, the phone number as 555-1212 or mickey@mouse.com, just as a placeholder. It creates all these duplicates in the backend database. Your VA's number one job, it's my opinion, this is the number one job they should be doing. Everybody wants to talk about all the other stuff, and we're going to talk about some of the other stuff, but everybody wants to talk about all these other things that they should be doing, when the first thing they should be doing is making sure the stuff in your system is what it should be. That's what they should be doing. They should be getting reports. They should be doing all the information from the carriers. They should be pulling all that stuff and putting it in your system. That's what they should be doing. Number one, data hygiene. Number two, I think that they should be doing all of your service, all of your endorsements. There's no reason when most, and I'm speaking to the people that have most of, if not all of their carriers on a browser where you can log in and do changes. There's no reason why you should pay somebody, my perspective, why you should pay somebody any money to come into your office and to do that. That is work that should be done by a virtual assistant. Again, we're talking about how to increase margins, how to increase profitability, how to keep more of the money that you make. And I'm going to talk through this just a little bit because this requires a little bit of unpacking. But the cost of doing service, and what a squeeze that is on your margins, that work doesn't need to be completed by somebody in your office. That should be completed by a VA. Your retention revenue, this is what's amazing for most agencies. And here's the thing that a lot of agencies don't think about. We get so enamored with the new business. When new business revenue typically makes up on average 10 to 15% of your actual revenue. Some of it's more, some of it's less. We have this whole mountain of revenue opportunities and revenue that comes into the agency merely as your book gets a little bit more mature, gets a little bit bigger. We have all of this stuff that actually makes you the real money in your agency, and it's retention. It's providing a good experience on the service side, on the claim side, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The retention piece of your revenue and your book and your overall profitability is, as you grow, is much, much bigger than the new business. However, everybody wants to focus on the new business. So what you should be doing is you should be putting a VA in charge of your service endorsements. They should be doing everything from making all the endorsements online with the carriers. Now, this, of course, and I'm going to hit on it towards the end of this rant here. This, of course, means that you're collecting the right data from customers for policy change requests. You don't have all these different ways for people to call in, tweet, text, hit you on Snapchat, TikTok, smoke signals, carrier pigeons, telegrams for people to make service requests. You shouldn't do that. Horrible idea. Unify that process, make it simple, make it clean. If people don't want to abide by it, they don't abide by it. But your VA should be doing that. They should be taking that information and they should be going to the carrier on the online system when and where they can, and they should be making all the changes. They should be closing out, number one, tracking, because things always got lost. This is an easy thing to get lost and let fall through the cracks. They should be tracking all the underwriting memos. When a policy is going to be non-renewed because there's a branch hanging over the roof, or the business policy is not going to be non-renewed because there's a crack in the pavement, they should be tracking all that down. And they should be actively trying to resolve those underwriting issues and memos. I think VA should be doing all of your certs. Again, assuming you have a way to collect information for cert requests, VAs, if you don't have a self-service mechanism or model in your agency, VAs should be doing all of your certificates of insurance. You got a book of business, you got a contractor that's got 500 certs, 50 certs. You're going to pay somebody to make all that in your office when you can drastically reduce, number one, their own mental brain power. You don't want to kill their brain cells. Have a virtual assistant do that. And right then and there, that was probably, someone probably was cringing that thought, well, that's probably not very nice to the VA. This is what they do. This is why you have them. They're grateful to do this. If you don't, it's hard to explain. This is what they do. They need to manage the service and renewal pipelines for your agency. However you have that set up, you got a service pipeline, you got a renewal pipeline. They need to be the air traffic control on that. They need to be moving stuff around. Don't just rely on the automation, but set the automation up with a virtual assistant. And the third thing that I think that a VA should do, if you got questions, make sure you put them down below. The third thing that a VA should do is, I call them, it's almost like a flex position, but it usually makes up a lot of clerical. And I'm gonna say clerical / personal assistant, but it's kind of a flex position. It's like your tight end on your team. Like they can be really useful. They can roll, they can go to the slot, they can go out wide, they can line up in the backfield, right? They're kind of a jack of all trades to some degree. But a flex position or a clerical position, this person is doing all of your data entry into the CRM and into the AMS. They're making sure every quote that your producers quoted or set up, they're making sure it's in your system. It's clerical, it's data entry. A lot of agents, and rightfully so, they don't like the idea of duplicate data entry. That's because a lot of systems don't integrate very well, and the integrations that exist in this space, frankly, suck. And that's not a knock necessarily on the companies as much as it's a knock on the legacy, outdated platforms that a lot of these companies are built on. So eliminate the data duplicate entry and have your producers or whoever enter it once and then have your VA do the rest. So clerical, enter all that information in, enter it into your rater, enter it into your CRM, enter it into your AMS. I think, and this is speaking to me, I'm an inbox 0 guy. If I've got an unread email, it drives me nuts. I'll leave it unread for if I need to, it's almost like how I prioritize things, but I can't have unread emails. I just can't. It drives me insane. Now I may not respond to all the emails in a timely fashion, but having them unread, it's like my OCD goes off. I talk to insurance agents, they brag about having 27,428 emails go unread. I don't understand that. When I hear that, I think, wow, where else are you really inefficient? It's a personal pet peeve of mine. I think a VA should be managing your inbox. When I had a VA, one of the tasks I told them to do, if you get junk mail, if you see anything with the word unsubscribe under it, here's maybe the 3 or 4 companies I don't want you to unsubscribe from, but everybody else unsubscribe from those lists. Unsubscribe from all the email lists, and here's some stock templates that I can give you to respond as if it's for me. And it took a little bit of time, so it's almost like a personal assistant / inbox control. Manage my inbox, manage my notifications, because from underwriters, you direct it where it needs to go. Does it need to go to the clerical person, the service person? Does it need to go to the data hygiene person? Manage that inbox. Schedule meetings via email. I think that's really, really, really important. I think that reducing a lot of this friction that we have is important. Now, how many VAs should you hire? How many VAs should this be? I'm a big believer that you should have 1 VA per type of task. That's not necessarily right or wrong, it's preference. I think that if you have 1 VA just doing that one thing, just living in your system, their sole responsibility is to make the data clean. I think that's good. If you have 1 person just doing service, I think that's great. I think they could be cross-trained a little bit. So if one's out or if you need a little bit of overflow, that's fine. And you might need 2 service VAs. You might need 3 service VAs. You might need 2 data people, depending on how large the agency is. But I think the point is they have 1, maybe 2 main responsibilities, because you want them to be just fast and efficient. You don't want them How many? You don't want them spinning plates. You're spinning plates. You don't want to get VAs for your VAs. Like, you just want them singular focused, like a piston in the engine. They're all firing off, doing their thing. That's my strong opinion. So for us, we had 4 VAs running, 3 of which were individually, they focused on one thing, and 1 was kind of a flex, kind of worked overflow for the other positions if need be. These are the 3 things I think. I think the other thing, and this is where I'll kind of get off here and jump off my soapbox. It's allergy season, forgive me. One of the things there's 2 things I think insurance agents should do. And Ryan, I see that question. Thank you. I'm going to bring you on here in just a moment if you're okay with that. Here's where things go wrong with VAs. You can say, great, Nick, I'm going to do all that. We're going to have a VA for service, a VA for hygiene, a VA for this, that, or the other. Cool. Here's where I think it goes wrong. You need a detailed process start to finish. You need to know what that process looks like. And here's how you need to judge if the process is good. You need to ask yourself these 2 questions. What are the quantifiable metrics, not the things that I can actually measure? What are the quantifiable metrics that I can put in of success? How do I know that that something was successfully done? What are the quantifiable metrics of this process, whether it's quoting or hygiene or service? How do I know when something was it's not objective? It's not subjective. It's very objective. It's quantifiable. I can measure this. What are the quantifiable metrics of success? And how do I know when something is completed or missed? I think that when you start your process and you dial in the process, that's what you should aim for. You should be aiming to answer those 2 questions and know what it looks like start to finish. The amount of times I've seen people talk about VAs and they go, and they totally shuck the responsibility of needing to train their VA or bring them up to speed and just assume that it's just instant VA, just add water and they're good. That's not how it works. You need to invest in these people just like you would an employee. And they can come trained, and that's great, but you should also have the processes built out for everything. Have your SOPs, your standard operating procedures from everything that you want them to do. If it's hygiene, perfect. Step 1, step 2, step 3. If this, then that. Every scenario so that you can give it to somebody and they can do it. And you have quantifiable metrics in place and measures in place to know when something is good or bad. And you can have accountability. The other thing I would encourage you to do is record and document your steps and processes. And you might have to record it a couple of times because things will change, but just do it once, or have somebody in your office do it once and record it on loop. They don't even have to be on camera. Just record it, screen record. With the webcam, the audio can come through, and explain it to them like you would explain to somebody who's never, ever seen it before. I would always say, if my 8-year-old doesn't understand this, or my wife doesn't understand it, then I didn't make it clear enough. Click on this tab, go to this website, enter in these login credentials. Here's where the login credentials are found in case you need to know where that's at. Go over to this button, click on it where it says reports. And you need to just record yourself just doing it, go a little slow so that someone can watch it and they can do it. And then you just create a library of these documented processes. So those are the 3 areas. Just to review: hygiene, service, clerical. And somebody will say, Nick, what about quoting? What about new business? And that's fine. If you can get them there, totally cool. But the biggest thing, again, goes back to you make your money on retention. So focus on making that process as dialed in as possible. So with that being said, I'm going to bring on Ryan. Are you okay to come on? Cool. Yep, I'm going to ask you to unmute. There you go. You should be unmuted here.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Hey, Nick. How are you, man? Can you hear me?
Let me stop one thing here. Sorry about that. I had a little bit of an echo. Go ahead.
Okay. You got me?
Yeah, I do.
Hey, man. How are you? I'm trying to look at the option of getting the producers that we're going to start bringing on, not dialing all day on cold list, not dialing on older stuff. Obviously, we're trying to get as much new leads in that we can. But the idea of having VAs do the dialing and have a producer-VA relationship one-on-one and have them warm transfer those to the producers when they get interested people. Producers are just closing. That's their job. What do you think, man?
I think it can work. Here's where I've seen trouble. Number one, and this was probably a me problem. I tried this and I didn't have a lot of success, but I think that was because it was a me problem more than anything. Here's what happens. You got your VA working, and especially if they're remote, right? The VA says, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to start dialing. If I dial, can I transfer this over? The agent goes, no, I'm actually in a meeting with somebody right now. Can't do that. So the VA's just kind of sitting there twiddling their thumbs, or they get somebody on the line, they got no one to transfer it to. Mm-hmm. I think it depends on the volume and the size of the list and what you're going after. I think it could be good. Okay. This type of thing exists in a lot of industries. It's traditionally called an SDR, sales development representative. This is what it's called everywhere outside of insurance. Person calls, telemarketer, transfers over, or sets an appointment for a salesperson to call. I think it can work. I personally am not a fan of it unless you've got a couple of things working for you. You got multiple people that lead can go to. So if you're looking on your VoIP or whatever, and you see this, and you tell the producers, listen, you better be available or not available, because if I transfer it, I need to know who it needs to have somewhere to go. Mm-hmm. If you could do warm transfers that way, when it's one-to-one, I think you have a lot more failure points. If it should be almost like one to a department, so that the VA has options. Yeah. Because the producer's going to, the producer's shouldn't be just sitting there twiddling their thumbs either, waiting for the warm transfers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And so they're busy.
So hoping they're calling back the people they missed the day before and whatnot. So I get where you're coming from. They may be on the line, not available.
Yeah. And this is another preference thing, because I want to be careful, because a lot of people do this to some degree of success. I think it's because they have more of a team. It's not necessarily a one-to-one thing. But so Nick Ayers' opinion, take it for what it's worth, is I personally like the producers to make that. If I got them on the line, I don't want to put my hope and faith in the VoIP to make the transfer work. I want the producer to make the relationship a little bit, on that. And so, but again, I know a lot of people do that strategy, and it works well for them. But if it were me to do it over again, I wouldn't do one-to-one. I would do one VA to a team of salespeople or to a department, so that if Susie's not available, Jimmy is. And that could be fast and that could be easy. And they're on your VoIP and it's good. That's what that's how I would set that up again.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions here? Chris, I'm going to bring you on here if you're okay. You got a lot to say here. I'm going to bring you on, but I'm going to give you a timer. I'm going to give you a shot clock. Okay. All right. You got 3 minutes of uninterrupted time.
I've been using VAs now, 5 years, but I actually went direct on my own about a year and a half ago. And one of the things I'm actually doing right now is assigning a VA to each department, like Nick mentioned. Like, we're departmentizing, so I've got a VA that will support my flood education specialist on the residential side. I've got one on the commercial side. Now I've also got what's called a VA quarterback. Basically, what they're doing is making sure that all of my other VAs are basically doing their jobs, and so that I'm not really having to manage much of it. And it's really helping. They're bringing the VA concerns to me, things like that. I've got our quoter. And so now we've got 8. I've also got my video editor. I've got a writer. I've got a SEO specialist now, and even a social media manager. So we have a team of 8. And so that's kind of how I'm using the VAs. But like I tell our licensed team, I want you building emotional connections with our customers and our referral partners. I want you having revenue generating conversations. I don't want you doing data entry.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point. Now, this is where I'm gonna tell you, there's one thing you're doing. And it's fine. It sounds like you've got to dial in, but this is, again, Nick Ayers' opinion here. I don't recommend insurance agents going and getting their own VAs. I don't either. I don't recommend it at all. So let me tell you why. Chris, you could put all the time and effort and doing it. Sounds like you have, and that's great. There is so much that can go wrong
Yep.
when they're taking the VA by yourself without going through somebody that sources them, vets them, trains them, keeps them accountable, oversees them, works in their call center, has security set up. It's like being on a trapeze with no safety net. You can make it work, and Chris, you can land on the podium, and good job. There's a lot more people who won't.
No, and I tell people, I said, look, for us, it happened kind of by accident. I almost never recommend someone doing it on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does it cost a little bit more? Yeah, it costs more, but you know what? That to me is the E&O. That's
but the security and the things you get from working at a company, like I tell people, you cannot put a price on that.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, anybody else? What other questions do we have here? I'm going to check YouTube over here, see if there's anybody watching on YouTube that has any questions. But if you got any questions, you want to come in on this conversation, you want to bring some insight or some ideas, or you're looking for some help, I want to make sure that we bring that in. So I'm gonna stall here for about 20 seconds to kind of switch screens and see if anybody else has any other questions.
Hey, Nick, I will say this, though. The one thing I didn't think would make a big difference was having a VA as a social media manager. That's probably made all the difference in the world.
What are they doing for you on the social media?
I mean, literally, they're doing the graphics. What they're doing is basically recycling content. They're taking all these videos we shot 2.5 years ago. They're putting some text with it and other things. And our LinkedIn engagement's up 300% in the last 45 days.
That's great.
I mean, we've even got referral partners that are picking the phone up and calling us because of something they saw on LinkedIn.
That's great. Great job. All right. Anybody else have any other questions? I'm going to give this about another 15, 20 seconds. Raise your hand if you got something you're curious about, you want to know more about as it pertains to using VAs on any of the things that we talked about. Again, hygiene, clerical, and service. Anything that you guys want to know more about. We'll give this just a moment here. All right. If you're watching this on replay, make sure if you have a question, feel free to comment down below. We'll get them answered. It's me, and I'll be answering any questions that you guys have. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining tonight's third episode of Agency Success Live. Tell your friends, tell them to come here, not next week, the week after. We'll be hitting another thing. If there's a topic you guys are curious about or want to know more about, shoot me a message. I'd love to address them or talk about it and give my spin on it, or bring people on who are experts in that. So tell your friends, let's pack this room out. Let's get more folks here, and let's help more agents have greater agency success. I'll see you guys.